Hello, everybody, and welcome to our inaugural VR Patients webinar talking about Release 9. Thank you all for joining. We got everyone's joining quite quickly. There's about 16 people in attendance. We're just going to give them a few more minutes, maybe one or two, to let them all join this webinar, and we're going to learn together. We have a very exciting lineup for you guys today, including amazing Paul Mazurik. I don't know where he is on your screen, but he's our hostess with the mostest today. And Paul, would you like to say hello to your audience?
How's it going, everybody? I am looking forward to going through some of the latest and greatest stuff that we have here, and then also maybe hopefully get a chance to network and help you out with your building needs, and maybe learn a thing or two from you, and yeah, just kind of taking this journey together.
Absolutely. And a reminder for all of our attendees in the audience, this will be recorded. And so we'll provide you with a recording after the fact, and you'll be able to share with your colleagues or review stuff, which will be great. Today, we are going to cover a few things while we're just waiting for a few people to trickle in. We're going to cover things like video tutorials and some of the other things about new clothing updates and the new scenes that we've added. We're going to talk about monitoring and custom menus, unsolicited callies, some of the user improvements, the UI improvements, and some of the VR enhancements. Paul's going to run the show, and if you have questions, please put it in the chat, put it in the Q&A. I already put one question in the QA asking, oh, I thought I did. I will start it now. We're going to start a little discussion. I'm very curious, how are you using VR Patients? And it's okay if you don't have anything major to contribute right now. We're all here to learn together. While we're just waiting for a few more people to jump in so no one misses anything as they all click start a little bit after the hour. And then I'll pass the mic over to Paul, the man, Mazurik. Now, just a little bit about Paul. Paul, can you tell everyone about your engineering and development background?
Well, I started out just like everybody else is starting out. My background is in healthcare. I've
Right.
been a nurse for 26 years and a paramedic for 32 years, and I still practice clinically when I'm not doing my fun job at VR Patients. I'm the clinical educator for survival flight at Michigan Medicine. And I started from scratch. I went through onboarding with Dwayne Ginder, our guy who's in charge of training and onboarding, and just kind of progressed from there, and just absolutely love it. All the things that I'm learning and the things that I get to do and all the cool stuff that we have available to us now. And so my engineering and computer programming background is very minimal, zero. So I am right there with everybody else, and everybody's got a starting point. My starting point was about a year and a half ago, and so I just want to encourage people to continue to build, ask questions. Um, if you're running into frustrations, reach out to us, and we're there to help you along the way.
And that was really the point that I wanted to highlight for everyone who's here today, that Paul and I are just regular Joes. I'm a paramedic myself. Paul certainly is a good, very talented builder in VR Patients, but the purpose is to really show that anybody can come in here and do this. And we understand there's pushing a snowball up the hill a little bit, which is why we're all here today. And I think it's about time that we get started. So before I pass the mic over to Paul, I'm going to share with you all, go blue. I'm going to share with you all one thing that we are working towards, and we can also talk about it at the end, which is that we are building a community for y'all, and we are building a learning management system for y'all. So that way there's a place to go asynchronously to both chat, share, and learn. We're going to continue these webinars, and your voice is extremely important. Remember, VR Patients is building this for you, so we want this to be extraordinarily useful. And with that, I toss the mic to Paul Mazurik. You have a full house, sir.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. Yeah, I try to reserve my Go Blues. Our company is actually based in Ohio, so I try to minimize and limit that. But yeah, I am a Wolverine. So All right, so let's get started. I'm excited to go through the release updates with everybody, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Make sure that you get those questions answered. If we don't do it in the chat, we will certainly do it sometime in the very near future. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We had a lot of stuff that was thrown into the thrown into the mix as far as release 9. Our development team has been really busy. They have worked really hard in order to get some really great features out. And so I'm just going to kind of glance over a few of these with the hopes that maybe we can expound on these in future webinars. But I'm also going to go through some of the stuff in a little bit greater detail, some of the nuts and bolts related to building and things like that with the time that we have together. But certainly, I wanna make this a value added for you. So if you have anything that we want to kind of talk about right now, we will certainly do that. The first thing that I was really excited about was these video tutorials. So the video tutorials are actually they're really nice because depending on the area of the scenario builder that you are in, depending on the tab that you choose in the scenario builder, it will show a library of potential or videos related to what it is that area of subject, and they're not really long. They're maybe a couple 3 minutes at the most, and they're packed with a ton of information, and they really can help you get unstuck in a time where maybe you're having some struggles trying to figure some things out. Rather than, say it's a Saturday evening. I don't know why anybody would be building on a Saturday evening other than me. But figuring out some things that might help you get unstuck in an area where you're stuck. So these video tutorials are great. With regards to the release has actually been out for a couple months now. We released June 5th. So this stuff has been available. So if any of you have been utilizing some of these things and want to go further into what it is that you're trying to accomplish with your scenarios, please feel free to reach out. Again, I can't emphasize that enough. The intent is actually to provide more content to show the user how to better use what is in our scenario builder and how to utilize it in a scenario. So those video tutorials are actually, they're very well put together. The other thing that's pretty self-explanatory is when it comes to some of the clothing enhancements that have been made. We've got a variety of options, including uniforms, cultural attire, allowing for more of a diverse patient representation. So we've got a hijab and a niqab. We also have the ability, so each and Amy here, her dirty and clean clothing, it's a little harder to tell. Some of the avatars, you can really tell between a dirtied version of the patient's default outfit and the clean version. We also have a police uniform now available. And then also for us folks that work in hospitals and are used to seeing patients in gowns, we have a gown available now for use. In addition to that, we've got some new scenes. So we've got a pool hall, looks like. We've got a car wreck scene, which is, if you've not been in it yet, just please go in it. It is absolutely amazing. They did a really good job with this. It's a very immersive accident scene, perfect for complex trauma situations. Maybe involving other witnesses and law enforcement and things like that. And we'll talk about here in a minute how we can add more life to your immersive environment. We've added we've updated our existing ambulance environment. It's been overhauled with significant visual updates for realism and immersion. And then we also have an international ambulance, a van style ambulance that's been added. And then we also have a helicopter. The helicopter is really cool if you want to start getting into more of a critical care air transport environment. It offers a restricted space and also restricted abilities of the patient, which actually kind of is a little bit more real life reflection of operating and taking care of patients in that environment. So a lot of cool new scenes. So that's available to you. From a monitoring standpoint, we've made some improvements to the monitor menu inside the simulation. Previously, you had to enable and disable and re-enable and the temperature and glucose. But now, if you go to the under the assessment tab, under the diagnostic tools, you've got your thermometer and your glucometer. Now it'll still pop up in the monitor, so the monitor will actually pop up, but those readings will be available. And these buttons here, you'll notice has a where you can refresh the reading. So if you have something set up where your glucose is going to change or your temperature is going to change for your patient, just clicking these will show the updated reading. So you don't have to disable and then re-enable the temperature and glucose like you had to in the past. You've also, as far as chart assets and images, you can actually, under the headset, you can view more than one at a time, which I thought was great because, and I learned this kind of by accident as I was under the headset testing a case where I had the physician orders, I had the lab values, and I had the monitor out at once, where now I can reference the physician orders, I can keep them up. I've got the lab values that I can reference to make sure that what I'm doing is reflective of the care that I want to provide. So that's actually a really great feature. The menu system itself, we've left justified for better readability. You've got icons added to the left side for each submenu. So we've got a lot of readability improvements associated with our system. The other
Hey,
thing that
Paul.
yeah.
Hey, man, sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt you. I just want to pause here for a second. Could you go back one slide? We've been showing you guys so much, and I just want to take a pause for a minute as we have downloaded everyone on a bunch of these custom menu new features. Can you go to the one after this with like that list? I want to give everyone just a chance to ask any questions as we continue on, because the custom menus one will be a little bit, I think, thicker and more deep on the feature side. So, Paul, I thought maybe while people are considering popping in a question, you and I could just chat briefly about how these features you've talked about to date could be utilized in a sim. And I think it's obvious in the one with the clothing. But I did have Portland Community College sent me a message about a week ago asking about the police uniform. Could you talk a little bit about how the police uniform could be utilized in a sim?
Well, the police uniform is new to the system, and actually, it's one of those where you could well, I mean, as part of a mutual aid, you could use for mutual aid.
There's also law enforcement requires treatment on scene sometimes. And so that's also another one. You get on scene, is the scene safe or not? And oftentimes those people require some treatment. And we're going to be utilizing that character, or at least that outfit, in future updates. So a little teaser there. Now, how about those video tutorials for a second? Do you happen to know on average about how long a video tutorial is? Because the whole idea, everybody, is that when you're in the system, the video tutorials are there for you, so you don't actually have to leave and bounce out to the YouTube channel or VR Patients University, so you can learn as you go. Do you have any thoughts there on actually utilizing those video tutorials while building Paul?
The tutorials are nice because they're only a couple of minutes and they give you kind of the bullet point tacit fundamentals of a particular area within the scenario builder. And so it's nice to, if you don't really have an idea of how to implement a certain section of the authoring tool or the scenario builder, you can go to those videos and get an idea of kind of the lay of the land, and sparks your, piques your creative juices in order to continue on through the scenario as far as creating it.
And then last thing, just wanted to ask you about before we move on to custom menus are those different scenes. A couple of things to highlight there, guys. That car crash scene is snowy. And so I love the idea of being able to do hypothermia in your scene as well and getting them covered with a blanket. And a quick tidbit, Paul, do you know who the pilot of the helicopter is in the helicopter scene?
I do not.
That is our president, Joe Borgraf, in the pilot seat. All right, back to you, sir. No questions came in. Thanks for the pause.
Sure. So with respect to custom menus are the one thing that custom menus do is it really, really allows you to expand the capabilities of your scenario. You can add one of these to each of the three main tabs, the assess, the monitor, or the treat tab. And if there is something that you don't have in your scenario that you want to add, a custom menu is a perfect area to be able to add that. Now, what I've used custom menus for in the past are, for example, here, so the Life Pack 15, for those of you that use the Life Pack 15, there are added modules that allow for carbon monoxide and methemoglobin measurements. And since that functionality isn't available in the monitor organically or right out of the gate, I can add that via a custom menu to allow those readings. So if somebody wants to click on that custom menu, say under a monitor tab, then you can click on that and get those readings. Another thing that I've used custom menus for are for quizzes, say at the end of my scenario. Now, I've been creating a lot of foundational courses for nursing students, and as part of the new way that they have created and have written the NCLEX exam, it is a scenario-based exam where you're given a scenario and then you're asked questions based foundationally on that scenario. So specifically for that scenario. So based on the scenario and the actions that the user goes through during the scenario, I create questions to get the user used to answering questions in that type of format. So that's a really good use of custom menus as well. So you can create name, you can assign icons. So each custom menu has a button name that you'll click on under the tab, and then it has what we call parent and child buttons. So you can select the parent button. Once you have selected this menu, you then select the parent button, and then a number of child buttons can pop up, and you can enable and disable these at any time. And also these custom menus, you can enable and disable within case logic to allow for you can control the time at which these menus are enabled. So if you, after a certain amount of time, want to enable, say, some sort of treatment, then you can do that within the custom menu, and you can determine at which point in time that is allowed. And I'll show you once I get through the little introduction here. My goal is to show you exactly, some just an example or two of how I've used custom menus and some of these other features in scenario building.
It looks like you got one. You got Dustin. We've used them for hospital alerts, which has been great addition. So he said STEMI, stroke, trauma, etc. for pre-hospital.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's a perfect way to do that. As far as improvements in dialogue, we now have something called the unsolicited callee. So any of the callees that we assign within our scenario, we now can have them talk whenever we want them to. We don't have to go in and call on their particular callee or ask the question. We can have them interject within the scenario at any time. And this adds a lot of functionality to the system where you have different people that can chime in, like a bystander or a family member or another member of the healthcare team or somebody else like police or fire or somebody like that that can kind of break down the walls that are created naturally within the immersive environment, and we can actually have more participants in the scenario than just yourself and the patient. So the use of this, and it's the great thing about utilizing this is you already know how to do this because you already know how to use unsolicited patient dialogue. It's the same thing. So now when you click on your callee where you have in here where the patient says questions and answers and unsolicited dialogue, you now have the same exact submenus for each callee. So you can insert all of that unsolicited dialogue as well as the questions and answers just like you're used to doing. So it's a really great way to kind of expand on the functionality of the system. And again, the UI improvements I talked a lot about. Some of the ones that I think are really impactful, the fact that you can now replace and remove clothing. So once you've removed it, you can now replace it. So that's really good. The Again, we talked about how the menus are set up and the icons. So it's got a little bit more it's a little bit more aesthetically pleasing from a visual standpoint when you're in the system. And also the fact that now I can have protocols open, I can have lab values open, I can have orders open at the same time I have my monitor. I can put those anywhere in the environment when I'm under the headset, and I can reference them at any time that I want because they'll be up. So those are some really great enhancements. The other enhancement or the other piece, and there's our Devin demonstrating that. He's kind of a pro at this, is the use of spatial pass-through. And now spatial pass-through is a new feature that seamlessly blends the physical environment with the immersive space, providing a lot of fidelity in this system. And I'll let Devin take a couple minutes to explain this a little bit more because it's a really great way to provide simulation. It combines, a couple of different environments to allow for a richer immersive or a richer environment in order to do the simulation.
This is a great opportunity for you guys all here today. I hope that you guys improvise with spatial pass-through in ways that we never thought of. Because I'll give an example of what we're going to do. We're currently going to do this at SimGhost. So if you're going to be at SimGhost, we're going to be there tomorrow in the next 3 or 4 days. You're going to get to try this on the HTC. But nevertheless, if you have a Quest 3 or HTC Vive XR Elite, the spatial pass-through is high definition. If you have the Quest 2, it's kind of black and white. That makes it a little bit more challenging. However, let me explain one thing that we're able to do with it so you guys can understand what I mean by improvise. We are currently using spatial pass-through or mixed reality or augmented reality. Just so you know, that kind of all is the same boat, what we're talking about here. It's mixing things in digital life with the physical world. So what we're able to do is create some custom menus that are branching logic quiz questions. A remote callee VR sim tech will call in and give instruction. Say, hey, you've reached this point in your simulation where you need to do a physical skill. Turn to the right. Keep your headset on. There is a skill station right there. It's a mannequin. It's a task trainer. It's a whatever. Turn to that and palpate the belly or do the thing that your proctor has told you to do in real life. Practice that real physical skills. Put your controllers down for a second. Leave the headset on. Do the physical skill and then come back. And when you go back to the questions, the dialogue as the student, now there's questions. And that remote sim tech is asking you, so how much did you draw up? Or when you palpated, which quadrant did you do? Or whatever your physical skill was. So you can allow your students to continue inflow and simulation in their existing sim lab, whether that's a actual sim lab structure where it's like looks like a hospital environment or the back of an ambulance or even outside. You throw down a trauma bag and it's like over here you're going to do CPR and then you're going to go back to your sim. Or over here you have a task trainer mannequin arm, you're going to put a tourniquet on it, crank, 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 answer a few questions, get back to the sim. That is extremely exciting because we want you guys to be able to explore different ways to do that we haven't thought of. So Portland Community College is behind me. And this is one of the things that they do before they had access to mixed reality, which was someone in VR doing something, talking through their team lead, their solo healthcare provider, and a person on the floor with a mannequin being delegated to, and they would cast. So they're casting, and they're saying, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to put a non-rebreather on them. And then the person on the ground, closed loop communication, non-rebreather, boop, 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 going on 15 liters, 15 liters. So this guy's doing digital decisions, and this guy's doing it in real life. But they could never see each other. And now you can, which means you could have a standardized patient walk in and interrupt the sim. Oh, that's my grandma. I called 911. She's in the emergency department now. What do I do? And the whole purpose is for the student to turn to that person and calm them down, sit down, and then get back to the sim. It could be any number of things. So we're very excited for you guys to explore that. Again, with the custom menus, just to clarify, Paul, I'm sure you're going to show this, but I just want to make sure that everyone kind of draws the link to building the customs menu and then what that ends up looking like in the output, because really it's a button. You're actually creating a button in VR Patients that doesn't exist today, and it can be what you make it. So if there's something you want your student to click on and we don't have it, you can make it. Go ahead, Paul, back to you.
All right, thanks. So I have the scenario builder up, and I just created just a little bit of a demonstration that will hopefully give some practical application or some understanding of how we can use some of these new features in order to kind of increase how robust our scenario is. So the first one I'm going to do is talk a little bit about the unsolicited callee. So again, everybody understands this menu where you have a patient, question and answer, we have commands, and then we have our unsolicited dialogue. So again, this is the dialogue that the patient says whenever we decide that the patient needs to say that. So we have these same menus now with our confederates or with what we call our callees. So in this instance, I've got my EMT partner who has a number of lines that in this instance he is going to say. So in that instance, and when you're in the simulation, you'll see a bubble pop out when you hear a voice. So and look right next to the menu system where which callee it is. So that's a really good again so I've got not just the patient, but I've got a medical control physician and my EMT partner in this really brief demonstration. So now I have 3 people to interact with in the scenario rather than just the one. And then when we get to the custom menus, again, depending on where your custom, depending on whether you're using, you can use it in either the assess, the monitor, or the treat. So you can create a custom menu. So typically what I will do, so in this instance, under the assess, I have a sternal rub, but I also have a question here that I want my user to answer at the end of the scenario. And I can enable and disable one of these two pieces, but this button will be enabled or disabled whenever I choose. And I'll show you in case logic what that looks like. So if we go to case logic, in this instance, I have let's see, where did I go? Okay, so my sternal rub. So my patient's going to be unconscious with a pulse, and what happens is once I've ascertain that my patient is unconscious, it's going to enable this custom menu under the Assess tab, the Parent button, and I don't have a Child button. The Child button would be another sub button to push at the end, but this just has me push this button inside the simulation. So once that is pushed, now the patient's behavior is going to change. The other thing that I can do is I've also created a custom menu for treatment where I have a dose of medication. Now, I only have, in this scenario, I only have one medicine enabled. If you notice, the only medicine that I have enabled in this scenario is dextrose 50%. But in a situation where I might want to rapidly deploy, like in my practice, I use push dose pressors, and we have what we call phenyl sticks. So they're pre drawn up, packaged by the pharmacy, syringes of medication that I have ready to go. So if I don't want to go into the medication menu and go through all of those menus of actually administering the medication and just want to do that inside the treatment tab, I can do that by creating a custom menu. So you'll see here what I have is I have three different concentrations, or not three different concentrations, three different doses of push dose epinephrine. So they're all the same concentration, but they're just different. There's 1 milliliter, 2 milliliters, and 3 milliliters. So there's 10 mics, 20 mics, and 30 mics. And based on which one you push, it's going to give me a different physiologic response. And based on that, once my blood pressure finally and my heart rate finally get to where I want them, depending on how many doses or cumulative doses of this custom menu button I push, it'll finally progress through the scenario where the patient will start to feel better. They'll tell me they start to feel better. My EMT partner will tell me, hey, whatever you gave her must have worked because she's looking better now. Medical control will call and want to find out, hey, what's going on? Give me an update so I can contact medical control and let them know. And then that will transition me to now my third custom menu, which all that is a question, a simple multiple choice question that is either right or wrong. And based on the answer that I provide, I've got unsolicited dialogue that'll tell me whether it's right or wrong. And then the scenario ends. So let me just run through it really quick, and I'll show you. It's not going to take very long, and then we'll save the rest of the time for any questions and answers you may have. Devin has one.
Yeah, just real quick. Remind me after you show this, I would love to go back to this logic and kind of break down some of the components in there that might be new to some of our visitors.
Sure. All right, so let's run this. Might be a little hard to hear. I've got my volume all the way up. So what I'm going to do is right when I get into the scenario, I am going to pause it and just turn my captioning on just to make sure everybody knows what's going on. So right out of the gate, I've got my patient Amy on a stretcher, and my EMT partner is with me. So what I typically do when I'm creating a scenario where the opening of the scenario has unsolicited dialogue, either from a narrator, my virtual sim tech, my partner, somebody else like that, I place a timer at the very, very beginning of the first node that I use for dialogue, which will fire off that dialogue. Because if you just throw that dialogue into the system without with like any other effect, if you throw that dialogue into the system, it's not going to know what is going to require that this effect fires off. So you have to put a timer at the beginning of the unsolicited dialogue in order for it to initiate within the sim. So he's telling me we need to check a blood sugar. All right, so let's check a blood sugar. So again, instead of going to monitor, I'm going to go to assess. And under diagnostic tools, I've got my glucometer and my thermometer. So if I do that, my monitor pops up and I've got a glucose of 50. Okay, well, that's low. So she's asking what her blood sugar is. She hasn't had anything to eat. Well, it makes sense. Her blood sugar's low. That might explain why she's got an altered level of consciousness. So
Hey,
really
Paul,
quick, yeah.
just want to check in. Sorry to interrupt you. We can't hear it at all. Is the share sound on? If you just move your mouse to the top, a little drop down should pop up in Teams, not in the. Like if you move your mouse
Uh,
to the top, there should be like a little drop down in your sharing tray, and one of them is share sound. It's a picture of a computer with a line through it.
okay, so there's share content, include sound.
There it
Okay,
is.
thank you. Sorry,
No
I'm still
problem. Thank you,
pretty.
sir.
I'm still pretty new to Teams. So okay, back to the action. Um, all right. So we are going to start an IV here, and I wish starting all IVs were this simple.
Don't forget to reshare for us, good sir.
Uh, uh, oh, there. Can you see now?
I can. I'll let you know about sound. Thank you very much, sir.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right.
Oh, I can hear. I heard your clicks.
Okay, cool. All right, so we've got an IV. Now we can give some medicine. So we're going to give some of this. And I'm just going to give her half an amp or 12.5 grams. And we're going to put it in one of the ports here to the IV. I'm going to give it over a few minutes. And I'm going to administer. And then as I'm administering it, I've got it set up to where it's immediately going to change the glucose. So if I go back to my diagnostic tools, you see this refresh button here. If I just click that, then I've got a updated level for glucose. So now I'm going to ask Amy how she's doing. All right. Amy, how are you doing here? Oh, we already did that. All right, so
Wow, not so good.
all right, she doesn't feel very good. All right, what seems to be going on? Oh, she's unconscious. Not cool. All right, well, I want to try to wake her up. So in my assess tab, I've got my custom menu at the bottom. So I click that, and here's my sternal rub that I've got enabled now. So I click that, and you're not going to see the knuckles going on her chest, but she's going to give me a response. She is not happy when I do that. But when I stop doing it, she kind of goes out again. All right. Well, this time I think I might want to check her pulse. So if I check her pulse, I'm going to check her pulse, and oh, her heart rate's going up like crazy. What's going on here? Let's get her on a monitor. Oh, now she's really unconscious. So I've got my vital signs here. Looks like I got my heart rate on, my blood pressure, and whoo, that looks fast. I'm hypotensive. All right. Well, It's been a while since I've looked at an ACLS algorithm. So this is what I'm going to do. Anybody remember doing one of those? I'm going to thump her right on the chest. All right.
So what did you just do? Was that
Whoa,
a custom
I don't
menu
feel so good.
button?
That was a custom menu. So I
Okay.
added a treatment for precordial thump. So basically
Great.
just right on her chest, for those of you that remember the old precordial thump.
So you just reached through the computer and knocked her in the chest.
Knocked her in the chest. And now
Amazing.
now she's awake, and now her heart rate's slowing down. But she just said that she doesn't feel very
Whoa.
good.
She looks pretty bad.
And now my EMT partner's telling me that she's looking a little worse. She's getting modeled. And oh, wow, that heart rate doesn't look good at all. I'm going to update my blood pressure, see where that's at. Oh, that's a bad blood pressure. All right. So that is where I want to rapidly deploy some of my pre-mixed medications. So if I go down to my treatment again, my precordial thump is gone, but now I've got push dose epinephrine, 100 mics and 10 cc's. So if I click on that, I can determine if I want to give 10, 20, or 30 micrograms. So I think I'm just going to start with 10 and see what that does. So once I give her 10, looks like my heart rate's going up. And doesn't look like it's going up too much anymore. She's still bradycardic. So if I could try another 10, or maybe I'll just try 20. So I give her 20. Check my blood pressure again. Blood pressure's better, heart rate's better. She's still not feeling very good. So let's try another 10. I mean, I could go to 30. Let's go to 30. So I go to 30.
Whatever you gave her must have worked. She looks better.
So I've got my EMT partner letting me know that she looks better. Blood pressure's better.
Feels better. Thank you.
She says she feels better. Blood pressure's better.
Medic 1, request update on patient condition.
Oh, now the medical control's calling, so I'm going to give them a call, let them know what's going on. So, patient stable, en route to your facility, ETA 10 minutes.
Nice work, Medic 1. See you upon your arrival.
And I'll have some explaining to do once I get to the hospital, obviously. But in the interim, I've given a few doses of push dose pressor using a custom menu. I reversed her SVT using a precordial thump, so I went old school on her. And I was able to use a custom menu to try to get her to wake up after she was unconscious using a sternal rub. So those are just a few expanded functionalities of the custom menu. So the other piece that I was talking about was the ability to do like a quiz. So if I go back to the Assess tab, I don't have precordial thump in there anymore, but I have a question. So if Amy were a child, which energy range would be the most appropriate for synchronized cardioversion according to the PALS algorithm for tachycardia with a pulse? So we've got to go to our PALS algorithm, and we got to decide what would be, if she were a child, what would be our synchronized cardioversion dose. Anybody want to take a stab at this before I answer it? I got 1 to 5 joules per kilo, 0.5 to 1, 2 to 4, or 10.
Come on, guys, put it in the comments. Put your guess in. And also, as a side note, you could put a photo of the PALS algorithm in the Assess tab, or in the Monitor tab, your EHR. Sorry, not Monitor, Assess. So your students, your learners can address things. All right, we got Joyce in at 0.5.
All right, I'm going to go with Joyce here, 0.5 to 1.
Big money, big. Oh, we got
Nice
0.5 to
job.
1.
I
Nice
knew that
work.
you could state the correct answer.
Beautiful.
Big money. All right. I can hear the coins jingling. Well done. Also, Paul is very good at this. I encourage all of you educators here to have your unsolicited callees give encouragement to your students when they do things.
Time with us. From all of us at VR Patients, have a great day.
The patient was a plant. She's really just a VR Patients actor. We have a couple of questions that came in for you, Paul. Are you ready? Crack your knuckles. They're good ones. All right, so first one that came in, we've had a couple, but first, we have a couple people on our team here. They're very excited about this user forum for Tom Shoemaker, so that's coming. Are we doing a user forum so people can chat with each other? Yes, we are. Get ready, guys. It's going to be great. We want you all to get connected. We want you all to share your ideas with each other and your challenges so we can solve them for you. So, question from Robert Sullivan for Paul. Do all of the interventions need to be in a specific order in order for a student to pass a scenario? For example, would pacing or medication both be acceptable for grading?
I can answer that.
All right, I call on you, Paul.
That is going to be up to you, sir. You can actually create an order by which interventions are performed, and then grade your student based on the order that it was done. And a lot of times, and I can do that. Yeah, I can show you.
I'm putting you on the spot. I'm sorry, but I want people to know not only can you do it, but we can do it right now, because we want you guys to start implementing all of these ideas and creative processes today in your schools, in your agencies, at your organizations. And I think that's also going to be another great thing about upcoming forums. And you guys also are free to share screenshots with us and send in screenshots and stuff like that. We'd be happy to, ahead of the forum, to respond and share, and we can annotate on your screenshots and stuff. While Paul's pulling that up, we have another question that came in from Patrick Cooney Davis, so we're going to hit you in just a second there, Patrick. Paul, do you need me to stall for another minute?
I have almost got this.
I put him on the spot. Pretty good.
I know. It's interesting because it's a great question, because I just did this the other day with a scenario that we revised. So I will share.
While he's looking that up, I put something in the chat for all of you all. I wanted to get it in a little early. I was going to give it at the end. It is a survey, post-webinar survey. Please copy that link and save it for after this webinar, because your feedback goes directly to the top, and you guys can, in fact, impact change here at VR Patients. Back to you, Paul.
All right. Well, I've got my scenario logic here booting up. And so what I've done, what I'm able to do is based on, so what I do is I create custom states. So in this instance, so for each one of these interventions that I do, each intervention gets a custom state. And so then what I do is once an intervention is performed, it will run through a check, and I'm going to have a series of checks. And in this instance, what is the intervention? Okay, yep, magnesium sulfate. So magnesium sulfate in an asthma patient, like right out of the gate, probably a little bit further down the list than some of the other primary interventions that I have. So I want to make sure that I've given oxygen. In this instance, I have determined, now the whoever asked the question about ordering, again, you can determine the order at which you can determine the order at which each of these interventions are performed. If you said, well, no, I think mag sulfate's a little bit more important than a fluid bolus at this point, then you can organize that accordingly, just based on whether or not you flip these custom states to true or false. So all of my custom states start as false, and then if I know, so if I've given my fluid bolus, if I've given my oxygen, and I've also given some beta agonists, maybe some ipratropium, whatever I choose that I want to give, if all of these custom states are true, and then I've also given the mag sulfate, I now know that that was done appropriately. So I gave that intervention in the correct order. So if I wanted to change the order at which these interventions are done, I just change the timing at which the custom states or the checks are true or false. So if I decide that if I decide magnesium sulfate is the first thing that I'm going to give, regardless, I don't care about oxygen, I don't care about beta agonists, nothing like that, magnesium sulfate, then all of these custom states need to be false. And if they're false, and I've given my mag sulfate, and then the next intervention I'm going to give is I'm going to give oxygen. Well, at this point now, everything's false except mag sulfate. So I know that the priority intervention for oxygen in this instance would be 2 behind mag sulfate, and so on and so forth. Does that answer the question? I can go through actually the mag sulfate's kind of down on the list, but if I go through my my scenario logic, also, I see that at this point, I've hopefully given, so say for ipratropium, I've wanted to give oxygen first. And then I'm going to give it before I give methylprednisolone. I'm going to give it before I give terbutaline. I'm going to give it before I give mag sulfate. So the only thing in this instance is making sure that oxygen was given before then to ensure that I have given it in the correct order. And if I did, then I assign points or I provide some sort of feedback. You don't necessarily have to provide grading, but you can provide feedback. Like I could say in an unsolicited callee, hey, you might want to check that in accordance with this protocol, or take a look at this. This is actually the order in which we should do that. So just make sure you understand that next time. So it doesn't have to necessarily be a grade attached to it, but it needs to be, probably some effect associated with that to ensure that, each of your interventions were performed all at once. Now, in reality, I could give any of these at any time, and so if I give a medication, regardless of when I give it, it's going to have its physiologic effect. But if we are trying to assess our users' ability to understand priorities and management, this is a good way to do it. And the way that I do it, again, is with custom states.
That is awesome. That question came in from Robert Sullivan. So, Robert, if that did or did not answer your question, please hit us in the chat. Got about 7 minutes left, Paul. Let's get to the next question real quick, which was from Patrick Cooney Davis. Can you set unsolicited dialogue that is conditional? For example, when you remove the clothing for assessment, they ask for a blanket, if not provided, after a few minutes.
You sure can. So if let's see, I don't want to, I messed this scenario up so bad that it took me a few hours to redo it. So I don't want to do anything inside of there as not to mess it up again. So let's go back here and go back to Amy. So if I were to, first thing first, I got to have my intervention on there. So environmental.
So can you talk us through what's happening right now? So he needs to make sure, in order to accomplish something on the back end, that on the front end, he has his interventions on appropriately. So you want to make sure that you're thinking about what you're going to need to accomplish that end goal. So can you explain what you're doing here, Paul, or attempting to do?
Sure. So you have to, in this instance, you have to have the patient in a specific position to use a particular intervention. So if I put her in supine or Fowler, I should be able to then provide the intervention I'm looking for.
Oh, no moulage.
No applicable moulage selected. Huh.
Well, while you're facing a bug right now, can you just talk us through how that works?
So basically, it's going to be an action. And so when I have done something, when I've performed something, when I have, say, I've removed the clothes and or I've applied the blanket, I can, after that, as an effect, I can enable my unsolicited dialogue. So if I go here, I can say, and I'll just select any unsolicited dialogue. So I could, I can have my patient say, wow, that feels better. So that's kind of how I do it.
Awesome. So that question came in from Patrick Cooney Davis. Please let us know if that didn't answer your question. We've only got about 4 minutes left in our webinar. We have another question from Joyce Lynn. Can scenarios be shared publicly? For example, if I create an ACLS bradycardia, VT, VF, ROS, could I share it so others don't have to recreate the same scenario for their programs? So this is a great question that I'm going to take a stab at here. We do have a future vision of propping up what we call a marketplace. Now, there's no money exchange in the marketplace. The idea is that you guys can share simulations, but there is a little bit of a lift there. So before we're able to do something like that, we have to do it manually. And we've done this before, for example, Portland Community College and Pima Community College. There's just a couple of things that need to happen. One, you guys have to agree that you want to share your intellectual property, that's yours, you built it, with this other organization. And we're happy to help facilitate that. So the answer to your question is today, Joyce, it's a little bit manual process, but if you find that you have a colleague or there's another user out there and you guys want to collaborate together or do something together, reach out to us, let us know so we can help facilitate until we get to a place where that is kind of autonomous and easy. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Paul, I just wanted you to address one more thing in your logic before we end, and I think it'd be helpful. Could you pull up the scenario logic you were first showing? And it had some comments in there and some timers with some switchbacks. And I just, in this one little section that not one little section, you were showing one, what do you want to call it, box. And I just was wondering if you would talk through briefly best practices in organizing your guys' logic. So a couple of things that you saw in Paul's share was yellow sticky notes that were comments and little timer switchbacks. So you saw like there was a timer below one of his nodes and it had a switch. We can't see your screen yet, Paul, if you are sharing, if you could share. And so what that means is that is continually checking for that action to happen. Here we go. So Paul, for the last 2 minutes, can you just help give us an idea of this blue box that's around this and how to organize your thoughts, your ideas, your builds so it stays organized for you and you can search for them and find them in folders?
Well, the great thing about the scenario logic is I can clump everything that I want to do together. So when I create a scenario, I start with a storyboard, and my storyboard is essentially from the beginning of the scenario to the end, what do I want to happen? What are the things that I want to happen? What are the interactions that I want to happen? And I create sections in my storyboard, and then all I do is I transpose those into when I go into my scenario logic. So in this instance, basically all this was the initial glucose check and my treating Amy for her low glucose. So once I create all of my nodes, I can go over here into my little lasso tab, and I can group all of this together, and then click on the grouping in order to just kind of section off that one particular section. Because what happens is when I go into the sim and when I go in to test it, I may be at point A of the scenario, or I may be point D of the scenario, and I don't. If there's something that it's like there's something that's just not working, this medication should be working this way and it's not, I can just go into that particular section, and 9 times out of 10, I'm going to find it a lot quicker. So it's just a better way to organize it. The other thing that I do is I create comments, and comments are really nice because if somebody else is looking at my scenario logic, because we have people like I have other folks on my team that, you know, look at my stuff for medical accuracy, and they also look at it for technical accuracy. And if they're not really understanding what I'm trying to do, these comments are really, really great to kind of explain where my head was at when I built it. Because if it's not working appropriately and somebody knows what I was trying to do, and then they see what I actually did, that then, you know, creating a revision or editing it in order to get it to work, it's just that much quicker. Now, computer programmers comment out their code all the time, and it just explains what those lines of code are designed to do. And so our development team created comments in the scenario logic to help us with the same thing. So it's great. The other thing I think you were talking about, Devin, was the looping timer. So if I have an action, this action, and I needed to check something in order for other scenario logic to kind of fire downstream, it may be, those conditions may exist right away, but they may not. So what I can do is I can have this check continue to run until the conditions are met, by which the rest of the scenario logic will then flow downstream. So for example, my blood pressure was really, really low, and I was giving unit doses of push dose pressor. So as I give units of push dose pressor, at the time I gave it, the value of the vital signs that I'm looking for in order to make a patient improvement hadn't been satisfied yet. I was looking for a systolic blood pressure greater than 90 and a heart rate of greater than 60. So my first couple doses of push dose pressor, those conditions weren't satisfied. So what happens is once that action is performed, it goes into a check, and then after that, it's going to continuously check until those conditions are satisfied. And once they are satisfied, then all of a sudden my EMT partner says, hey, they look better. And all of a sudden the patient will say, hey, I feel better. So that's what the looping timer does.
Brilliant. Well, Paul, you are on a roll, and I hate to cut you off, but we are at time. So thank you, everybody, for coming and joining, for participating. Please click on the link to the form and fill out that survey. It's very brief. Let us know so these webinars can continue to happen. And we want your ideas. We want to share, and we want to build a better product that's useful for you. And I put another link in there for the VR Patients University. We'll let you know as things grow, and we'll see you all next time. We'll send out the link to this webinar recording this week. So stay tuned, and thank you all. Have a great rest of your day. Paul, well done, sir.
Thanks, everybody. Take care, and I hope to hear from you soon.
Oh, Joyce, to check in for a one-on-one, don't worry, our team is already going to reach out to you. And anybody who wants to reach out to us directly, feel free to go to our website and just click on the chat bot. And that's us, and we will immediately, it's a real person, it's not a bot. And we will immediately reach out to you. All right, everyone, closing out. See you later.